A special edition of Scotland Tonight. 100 children and young people are putting their questions to First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, enabling their voices to be heard and allowing them to hold those in power to account. Well, they're the voters of the future, but have very little say in the decisions taken that will affect their whole lives. So, joining forces with YouthLink Scotland and Children in Scotland, we're giving 100 children and young people the chance to put their questions to the country's most powerful politicians. Welcome to FMQ's Next Generation.
Now, please give a warm welcome to the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon. Okay, everyone, do we think we're ready to ask the First Minister some questions? Yes! Great. Let's begin. Ellie, kick us off with our first question.
Why is there an increase in mental illness in students both in primary and high school, and why is medicine deemed the go-to solution?
Well, thank you. That is probably one of the most important questions that we face right now. There's an increase in people coming forward for help with mental health problems because, and this is a good thing, there's not as much stigma now associated with mental health. When I was at school, nobody talked about mental health. If you felt you had a mental health problem, it was something you kept to yourself and kept hidden. People feel much more able now to come forward for help. But that means we've got a big responsibility to make sure people can get the help they need and get it in the right place. There is, I think, just now a tendency for medical solutions to be the priority, and some people need specialist care and medical solutions. But what we want to do now is also build up more help for people in communities, including in schools. So you might have seen last week we announced a plan to increase the number of counsellors in schools so that young people have access to people they can talk to make sure they keep healthy mentally. But if they feel they have a problem, to get some early advice and support that might then mean that they don't need to be referred into more specialist services. So building up that community access is a really important priority.
Okay, Ellie, do you think the First Minister, did she answer your question? Did you answer the question why there's been the increase?
I think more people feel able to come forward, so
right.
That is part of, well, that's part of the answer. I suppose there's also a sense that, you know, the pressures on young people today, in some respects, are maybe greater and more complicated than they were when I was growing up. Social media, for example, I think creates, it's a good thing, but it creates additional pressures on young people, maybe opens them up to bullying, for example, in a way that wasn't the case in previous years. So two things I think account for the increase, that and also the fact, which is positive, that people feel able to come forward for help.
Being someone who's went through the system, there is a long wait process to get to these systems to help others. So what is going to be put in place for the people currently in these situations?
Well, there's some short-term work being undertaken just now to speed up access to specialist treatment, and particularly to try to get quick treatment for people who've been waiting a long time, because we recognise that part of the problem of increasing demand is that people are waiting longer than we want them to wait. Over the longer term, part of what we're trying to do is what I was talking about a moment ago, is build up the provision of services in local communities. So I spoke about school counselling services. We also have plans to introduce a mental wellbeing service for people aged 5 through to 24 to make sure there's quick access to counselling or peer-to-peer support. So if we get that right, then hopefully fewer young people need to go into specialist care, and those who do need to go into specialist care get quicker access to that care.
Excellent. Let's move on to our next question. Now, this comes from Kamal, who unfortunately is unable to be here with us today. So he sent his question via video link.
Hello, my name is Kamal Yubin, and I'm coming to you from Aberdeen for Your Futures. My question for the First Minister is, why isn't there more tolerance awareness training provided to secondary school pupils? Thank you.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, tolerance awareness, it covers a wide range of issues. Essentially, we're talking about an awareness of differences of race, religion, whether or not you're LGBT or so on, just simply being aware of these differences around us. The First Minister.
Well, firstly, thank you to Kamal if he's watching. Thank you for your question. The issue of tolerance awareness, of making sure that people are tolerant, don't discriminate, don't indulge in bigotry, that is already a core part of the school curriculum for excellence. It's embedded in what young people should be taught in schools. An understanding of the differences between different people, and crucially, an understanding that those differences are not a bad thing, they're not something to be criticised, they're actually something to celebrate, that we all have value as individual human beings, regardless of our faith or our race or our sexuality or our gender orientation. And that must be, in my view, a core part of what all young people have access to in schools. I'm always keen to hear from young people about whether they think that works well in practice, or whether there's a need for a greater emphasis, which I suspect is what is behind Kamal's question. Schools are central to that, but of course that should run through all of society, all of us, whatever position we hold, whatever place in society we hold. I think there's an obligation in all of us to make clear that everybody should be valued, and discrimination and intolerance is not something that we should put up with.
Do you think there is actually more to be done in terms of rolling this out? Otherwise, why is the question being asked?
I think there's always more to be done on these things. You know, we have a situation in Scotland where we know that, well, I mean, if you take LGBT issues, for example, Scotland is internationally recognised as one of the best countries in the world for LGBTI rights. But we know that there's still homophobic bullying in schools. So we set up a working group spurred on by the TIE campaign, which many of you will have heard of, to look at what more we need to do in schools to tackle head-on homophobic bullying. So yes, I'm absolutely of the view that there will always be more we can do around this, and we should never ever shy away from that.
Okay. Right. So leading on from that, have you ever experienced bullying yourself?
Yes, I went through periods at school of being bullied. I wouldn't say it ever got to a really serious level that made me unable to go to school or scared to go to school, but I had experiences in primary school where it certainly was sufficient at one stage to involve a teacher. So, I think many people will have those experiences, and what's good, I think, is to be able to be open about them and to come forward about them. And part of what we need to do around all of these issues that young people face, often issues that can impact on mental well-being, is create an environment where people don't feel they have to keep these things to themselves. They can come forward and get help and talk about these things. And if they do that, they don't only help themselves, but they help other people as well.
Of course. And did you enjoy your time at school?
I loved school in the main, yeah. I think I probably enjoyed primary school. Sorry, the other way around. I think I enjoyed secondary school more than primary school. But by and large, I loved my time at school. But looking back on it, I think it's like any other period in your life. You'll go through times where you love it and it's great. You jump out of bed in the morning. Well, maybe that's exaggerating. And you look forward to going to school. You'll probably also go through periods where there's things happening and you maybe don't feel as happy. And what we've got to do is, for young people, is not to try to pretend that at any stage in life it will always be plain sailing, but try to address issues and help people when they encounter problems as much as possible.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, look, let's take some quick fire questions from the audience.
This is always
now.
the hardest part.
This is the hardest part. They're all hard for us.
They are all hard,
questions.
trust me.
They're very good questions. Let's take it away with the quick fire questions. We're starting off with Tamsin. Where's Tamsin?
Hi, Tamsin.
Who would you walk 500 miles for?
Oh,
Great question.
the questions can be quick fire. The answers have to be quick fire. I better say my husband, actually, because he'll watch this when it's on STV, and if I don't say that, I'll be in big trouble. So There you go.
Okay, next one, Aidan.
Oh, Aidan, look, I've got experience of Aidan's questions.
Yes.
They are always off the wall.
What's your thought on the new iron brew recipe?
Well, do you know what? This is a very timely question, Aidan, because I was sitting next to the chief executive of Iron Brew at a dinner last night, and I was talking to him about this. And what he was saying, and I agree with this, is that it's right that they've reduced the sugar content in Iron Brew because that's good for the health of young people. And he was making the point, and this is what I also agree with, actually for the vast majority of people who drink Iron Brew, which I suspect you're one of them, you can't taste the difference. What do you think?
It's not that different. It's not that different.
It's not that different.
Not that different.
It's not that different, yeah.
No.
I think he'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Can you taste the difference, First Minister?
I don't think you can taste the difference, no.
No?
No.
What about a show of hands in the room? Who can taste the difference with the Iron Brew? Ah. Who prefers the new Iron Brew? There we are. First Minister prefers it. I think our taste buds will adjust, won't they? Our taste buds will adjust. Next question, quickfire questions from Sally. Where's Sally? There we are. To give us time to get the microphone back to you.
If you were to change anything about Scotland, what would you change?
The thing I would change, and we are working to change, but if I had a magic wand to change it overnight, it would be to eradicate child poverty. It would be to make sure that we had no child that was growing up in poverty or disadvantage. Now, we've got a lot of work underway to try to get to that point, but I would like to do it quicker than will probably be the case because of the complexities of that. So that would be my magic wand thing that I wanted to do.
Okay, you might want your magic wand ready for this next question, First Minister. We're going to take a Brexit-related question. We're going to talk about Brexit.
Okay.
This is from Freya. Where's Freya?
It's Freya.
Hey, Freya, let's get the microphone to you.
In the light of the Brexit vote, do you think that political education should be compulsory in schools?
I think that what should be and is mainstreamed through the curriculum is education that gives young people an awareness and an understanding of politics and gives them the ability to be good, responsible citizens. I don't think we should in schools have political education that tries to tell young people what to think, however tempting that might be for politicians, but to give young people the tools they need to make responsible and informed decisions. Obviously, more young people, I think, these days than previously will study politics as a course. Lots of young people study modern studies, but I think across all subjects, giving young people the information and the tools to make up their own minds about things is really, really important. So I would agree with the basic premise of your question.
Okay, Freya, do you think that we're getting enough political education in schools?
Yeah, I think it's offered through modern studies, but I'm not sure that modern studies is available in all schools. And I think it's also really important to make sure that it's non-biased and equal, so that people can, young people can make up their own minds instead of being influenced by their teachers or by other adults.
Do you think we should be doing more to help young people and children understand more about the political system?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure how much difference it would have made during Brexit because of the older generation were more inclined to vote to leave rather than the younger generation. But I think it's important that we're all young people have an opportunity to learn about what's going on.
I mean, if you look at what happened in the independence referendum, which not all of you will remember clearly, but schools did a great job there. I think in the run-up to that, there was a bit of concern that it would be difficult to give young people information without it being biased in one direction or the other. But in reality, schools did a great job. Young people were so informed about that decision, not just those who actually had the vote at 16 and 17, but even younger children. And that's a model, I think, of how that can work in that unbiased way, but giving young people the information they need to make up their own minds about what are often quite complex decisions.
And First Minister, do you think there should be a second referendum on the Brexit vote? And should these young people be able to have their say?
Well, I think we should have the vote at 16 for all elections or referendums. Where we in the Scottish Government are in charge of the rules around elections, that already happens. So for Scottish Parliament elections, you can vote at 16, you could vote at 16 in the independence referendum, but for Westminster elections and for the Brexit vote, 18 remained the age. On the first non-controversial part of your question, I certainly wouldn't stand in the way of another referendum in the EU. I don't want us to leave the EU. I think the big question for Scotland, though, is if there was to be another vote on EU membership, how do we make sure that we don't end up in the same situation again, where Scotland votes one way, but because the rest of the UK vote another way, we effectively end up being taken in a direction against our will. So I would like to be convinced that if there was going to be a second vote, Scotland would have an assurance that we don't just end up in the same position all over again.
Moving on to our next question from Ebo.
Recently, sanitary products were made free in schools and colleges across Scotland. Do you think they should be made free for all women?
In principle, yes. So, as you have rightly said, Ebo, in schools, colleges, universities, from the start of this school academic year, all people who need them get access to free sanitary products, and I think that's absolutely right. Separately to that, the Scottish Government has given funding to an organisation called Fair Share to make sanitary products more available to people on low incomes, not just people in schools or colleges or universities. And that's based on a pilot project we carried out in Aberdeen last year. So we are moving in that direction. There's also a lot of other organisations now independently through their own decisions making sanitary products available in workplaces, and I think all of that action taken together is leading us in the direction of all people who need them being able to access free sanitary products when and if they need them, and I think that's the ultimate point that we should try to get to, because these are not luxury items, they are necessities, and I think we should see it in that light.
Is that okay, Ebo? We got the answer you wanted? Good stuff. Okay, let's stay with schools. We're going to move to an age-old question from Lucy. Where's Lucy?
Why are children receiving so much homework from their teachers? If adults are asking children to exercise and be outside after school, they can't be if they're sitting inside doing their homework.
The homework question, which is always if I want to remain popular, it's always the difficult one to answer. The government doesn't dictate to schools how much homework young people should get. We believe that those are decisions that are best left to individual schools and individual teachers. I guess my view is that we need to strike the right balance around this. Often some homework can be positive because it can help to reinforce what you're learning in school. Also, having homework can help your parents or carers get involved in what you're learning and be able to help you or take an interest in that. So I think, although I can understand, because I used to think this when I was at school, it's not always popular, I think homework has its role, but it needs to be balanced, because we do want not just young people to exercise and be active, we want young people to be able to relax or go out to play or do things that they enjoy. So young people shouldn't get so much homework that they feel they're not able to do these other things. So getting the balance right on anything is never an easy task, but I think that's what we should be aiming for. And I'm going to sound really old here by giving you all advice about homework. I should say it's advice I never followed when I was at school. But if you've got homework, do it when you get first home so that it's out the way, and then you can spend the rest of your evening doing the things you enjoy.
Yes, that's the advice I was given as well.
Yeah, none of us ever followed it.
We never followed it. How did that answer your question? Do you think there is are you managing to strike the balance? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How about everybody else? Let's ask you guys in the front row here. Do you think you're getting too much homework at school? Yeah. Of course, yeah. Everyone thinks they're getting too much homework. You don't think you're getting too much homework, do you? Yeah. Do we need to give you more homework? Yeah, we need to give you more homework. Do you think you're able to exercise enough as well?
Too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Way
too much. Okay.
Sometimes our teacher makes us, if we don't finish our math, he makes us take our maths home and do it.
It sounds like a strict teacher.
He is.
Okay, we've had bribery mentioned here. Yeah.
Corruption. We've got enforced.
So
maths.
I won't use the word bribery, but does that incentivisation to do your homework and get a treat, does that work for you? Does that make you more likely to do your work, or?
Kinda. Depends how good the treat is.
Depends how
really.
good the treat. Yeah.
You get to go afterwards anyway.
Right. Okay. So we've got a bit of a mixed opinion here, I think, about too much or too little homework.
That could be the basis of a new policy, First Minister.
Well, this school here is Pollock-Shields Primary, which is in my constituency. So, you know, these are constituents of mine, so they could, in theory, come and lobby me to do something about it.
Excellent, excellent stuff, Chelsea.
Great. So, leading on from that, who do you think should decide what we as young people learn?
Well, the Curriculum for Excellence gives the broad sort of shape of the curriculum. We've never had what's called a statutory curriculum in Scotland, where it's really set down in tablets of stone exactly what young people should learn. But within those broad parameters, it should be teachers and, you know, with input from parents that decide what goes on in schools. I think teachers are best placed, even if they're strict, to know what works best and what doesn't. And what we're trying to do with schools just now is give teachers and head teachers much more authority and control over actually what happens in schools.
Great. So we have another round of quick fires coming up. Over to Katie.
What do you do when you have free time?
I like reading books when I've got free time. That's my favourite thing, getting lost in a story and taking my mind off everything else.
Ivana?
Do you like Harry Potter? If so, which is your favourite book and favourite character?
I do like Harry Potter, firstly. My favourite book, I think, possibly Chamber of Secrets or The Philosopher's Stone. My favourite character, I love Hagrid. But Harry's good as well.
And Eloise?
What was your childhood dream job?
I wanted to when I was a child, I either wanted to be a lawyer, which I went on to do, or I wanted to write children's books, which I've not done yet. So who knows, maybe in the future I might manage to do that. But those were my dream jobs when I was a child.
Excellent stuff. Well, that's us ease in with the quick fires. Are we okay?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, let's move on. We're going to go beyond the schoolyards, beyond the library. We're going to take a question now from Laura. Laura, are you there?
What are you going to do about ensuring young people with care experience are ready to live independently and not just given a house and left to get on with it?
Well, that's really important. Some of you might have been there or seen it. I went to the summer camp to talk to some care experienced young people. Chelsea was there at the same time, and this issue was one of the things that was raised with me about when young people are leaving care. And obviously one of the big things young people with care experience raise is not being forced to leave care before they're ready, and of course we've extended the age for that, but also making sure they don't have to apply as a homeless person, but that when they do get a home, they also have the right support around them, because most young people, whether they grow up in the care system or not, would struggle if they were suddenly expected to live independently. So making sure that aftercare is right is really important. We've already extended the age for that right through to 26, and as you know, we've got the independent review of the care system underway just now. I saw Fiona, who's chairing it, outside before we started, and these are some of the things that she'll be looking at to see what more we need to do to make sure that package of support is right.
Okay, is that a good enough answer for you? Yeah? Well, look, we're going to stay on this theme. We have a follow-up question from Katie. Katie, can you give us a wave? There you go.
Why is there very little support and things we need most help with when going into adult life, not only for care experienced young people, but all young people without good support network? Why is it not mandatory for secondary school pupils to carry out lessons around life skills?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm always open to views of young people about whether there should be more emphasis on certain things in school. I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the curriculum, in Scotland we don't have what's called a statutory curriculum, so we don't lay down mandatory things that must be done. But part of the overall approach in schools is to make sure that young people are not just learning the maths and the science and the English that they need to learn, but they're also learning life skills and learning to be good citizens who can cope independently. I think our schools, by and large, do a good job with that, but if what you as young people are saying to us is that there needs to be more of an emphasis on these things in schools, then we have to listen to that and we have to respond to that.
Katie, do you think that there should be more of an emphasis on life skills in school?
I think there should be, because there is a lot of young people coming out of like care and just like young people in general, so they've not got like the proper experience because some parents aren't able to teach them, or even carers, so they're going into adult life and they're not going to know how to do the simplest things that any other person could.
I think for care experienced young people, I think that's particularly important, because care experienced young people will often not have the same support networks that others take for granted. And that's one of the things that we are trying to focus on, making sure that support doesn't just end and you sort of take a step off a cliff edge when you get to 18 is one of the things we've done, but making sure the right support's there is important as well. It's one of the reasons, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons we've set up this really fundamental look at the care system, at how it is for young people who are in care, but also what the support is when young people leave care. I mean, I do lots of important things as First Minister, I've got lots of important responsibilities, but the work we're doing right now to improve the care system and the experience of young people in the care system or who have been in the care system is probably the most important thing of all, because if we get it right for that group of young people, then we'll get it right more generally as well.
Okay, Katie, I'm sorry to pick on you again, but let's talk about these life skills. What sorts of life skills would you like to see being taught and being brought in?
Well, one of the main things would probably be for a young person is most young people won't know how to pay their bills maybe, or even just simple things like cleaning their house or being able to work a cooker. It's from like the simplest things to like maybe the biggest things that they're not going to know what to do.
Yeah, being able to work a cooker is one of these life skills that I missed out on when I was younger, I think, as my husband would tell you now. But your point is absolutely right. And I think it's important for all young people, and particularly for care experienced young people. And you're right to focus on schools, but I think we've also got to remember it's not only something that we've got to make sure schools get right. We've all got a responsibility to look after and properly equip young people as they come out of the care system so that they're able to live independently and enjoy life and fulfil their potential.
Okay, we're going to take another question that we were given. This is from Ella, I believe. Can we just get the microphone to you?
As you remember, I came and had a meeting in your office in May, and I gave you a very personal account on how mental health was affecting young people in Scotland. If you are as passionate as you say you are about mental health, why did you and your party abstain against a vote for a mental health counsellor in every school after I gave you such an in-depth personal account? And it got passed due to the Tories and Labour.
Well, firstly, I remember you coming to meet me, and what you told me had a profound impact on me. Sometimes, and I know this is difficult to understand, sometimes votes in Parliament, they're about the moment in time. So if we're working towards something, sometimes you can't always support a particular motion there and then. Last week, as you might or might not have heard, we've announced a quite ambitious plan to increase the provision of counselling in schools, because as we were talking about earlier on, that's really important for young people who need that support, but it also will help young people if they get that support early and perhaps prevent them needing more specialist care. So I don't want you to think that what you told me hasn't had an impact on the work we've been doing. In fact, it's had a very direct impact on some of the most recent announcements that we've made around how we improve mental health care for young people.
But in terms of an abstention on a vote, I mean, we've got children and young adults here aged from very young to very... It's difficult to understand how you can abstain from something that you say you're supporting.
It is difficult to understand, but one of the things that I believe really strongly when I'm talking to young people is that I don't oversimplify things for young people, because I think that insults the intelligence of young people. And sometimes, there are votes in Parliament that for a particular reason, because we've maybe not completed the work we need to do. One of the things that's important for politicians, and we don't always, including me and my party, we don't always get this right, is if you're going to make a commitment, you want to make sure you've done the work to deliver on that commitment rather than just say it because it's the easy thing to do at the time and then let people down because you don't deliver. So sometimes these things are difficult sometimes for adults to understand that, but I believe in politicians, and I try my best to practice this, is having an honest conversation with people about the difficult decisions that sometimes you have to make in government and the work you have to do to turn promises into reality. So we've been doing a lot of work around mental health. We've been doing a lot of work around children and adolescent mental health services. So that's what meant that last week we could make a commitment around school counselling and community mental health services, because we know we've got the work and the resources in place to actually deliver that. And that, at the end of the day, is what really matters to people.
Well, if your party and yourself didn't vote for it, why did you mention earlier on in the first question that this is what was taking place, even though you didn't support it?
Because at that point we hadn't done the work and the preparation to put it into practice. We have now, so we are now putting into practice plans to increase. So last week we announced plans that are going to increase counsellors across the schools, but 350 counsellors working across schools so that all secondary schools will have access to counselling services. We've announced the money that's going to pay for that. And that's, it's easy, and politicians, including myself, do this. It's easy to make the commitments. What you've got to do is make sure you've done the work to deliver on those commitments. And that's what we've now done, and that's why we've made that commitment.
Okay, I think this raises quite an important point, and we talk about young people and children, but it goes for adults as well. Politicians seem to say one thing and not act on it.
But that's what I'm saying. That if we'd voted for that motion before we'd done the work to know we could deliver it, we would be guilty of what you're accusing us of taking the easy option.
In terms of perception, First Minister, do you think that sometimes politics gets in the way of getting things done?
It does a lot of the time, but I suppose what I'm trying to explain here, and I know it's not always easy to understand, is that voting for something in Parliament is, can often be the easy part of what you do. And if you do that without knowing that you can deliver something, you're not doing anybody any favours or treating people with proper respect. So you do the work and then you say, we will deliver this, rather than just say for political reasons, yeah, we'll vote for this because it's the easy thing to do, even although privately we know we haven't done the work to know whether we can deliver. And that's a harder conversation to have with people sometimes, but I think it's the more honest conversation. And one of the things that I think we need to do, starting with young people, is have those honest conversations about, all of the things that we all believe we want to do. But for me as First Minister, to be honest with you about some of the hard work and hard decisions we've got to make to deliver these. And if this focus on young people's voices is to mean what I want it to mean, I think me being prepared to sit in front of an audience of young people and actually be frank and honest about some of the challenges we face is part of that. Rather than just telling you all what you want to hear and then leaving this room knowing that I can't fulfil these promises. So it might make it tougher sometimes, but I think it's a far better conversation for us to be having.
Okay, let's move on now, Chelsea.
We now have a question from Nicola.
What is your aim for the next generation?
I want the next generation to be able to shape the future of this country, whatever that might be, confidently, with the right skills and the right abilities to be the leaders of the next generation. I want all sorts of things. I want us to resolve these issues of mental health we're talking about, as I mentioned earlier. I want us to eradicate child poverty. So these really tough things I want us to do, but more than anything, the next generation, we want to be the people who've got the confidence to take all of that forward. And without being cheesy about it, I get to speak to lots and lots of young people all over the country. And if you're asking me, what does that make me feel about the future of Scotland? The honest answer is it makes me feel really optimistic about the future of Scotland, because I think our young people are fantastic. I think if, the young people of this country are anything to go by, we've got a really bright future as a country, and that's a good thing, and it's a good thing for a First Minister to believe.
What do you think, Nicola?
I think that's a very good answer, and I do also wish for the same things as you have.
Thank you, Nicola.
Excellent. Well, let's take some more questions on this. Does anyone else have a question? What they would like to see for the future? What they would like the First Minister to do? The young lady with the yellow.
Hi, my name's Mayada, and I'm here on behalf of Young Edinburgh Action from Edinburgh. And I just want to say, so 14,075 children were homeless in 2017, and 38 children are homeless every day in Scotland, and there's simply not enough being done about homeless teens in Scotland. Social work doesn't consider you a priority if you're over 16, and there's very few organisations and charities that have the resources to look after teens, especially teenage boys. And I just want to know if there's anything being done or anything that's going to happen in the future to help this sort of thing.
I was speaking last night at a reception in Parliament for Shelter, I suppose the principal charity in Scotland that helps people who are homeless or living in poor housing conditions. So all of these issues were very much to the fore of these discussions. There's an awful lot of work that we're doing to tackle homelessness across all age groups, but you've particularly highlighted the issue of younger people and teenagers in homelessness. Fundamentally, the most important thing we need to do is make sure we're building enough houses for people for the future, and the right kind of houses in the right places. We are sort of midway through, or getting towards midway through, the biggest affordable house building programme that we've ever had in Scotland. So over this Parliament we are delivering 50,000 new affordable homes. So that is key. Also helping people, and it goes back to one of the questions earlier, specifically about care experienced young people. It's about making sure that people who, through no fault of their own, will find themselves homeless or at risk of homelessness, the right support is being provided. We've seen a reduction in recent years in the numbers who are registering as homeless, although it's still too high. We're seeing a slight increase again because of the cuts to benefits and welfare that the Westminster government has introduced. So last year we set up a group of experts, people who work on the front line with homeless people, to make recommendations about how we eradicate rough sleeping on the streets, but look at how we really end homelessness. So they've delivered already lots of recommendations which we've put extra money behind. And one of the things we're doing, which is an approach that's been tried in other countries, I think Finland in particular, is a rapid rehousing for people who are homeless. So instead of waiting until they've got the right support and then giving them a house, it's getting them into accommodation and putting that support around them. And that's really important for people of all ages. And at the end of the day, if you're homeless or at risk of homelessness, it doesn't matter what age you are. You need that support to get out of that situation and to keep a house once you get it.
Okay, who have we got next? Oh, lots of hands. This is good to see. That warm-up worked, didn't it? Let's the young lady here with the tie and spectacles. I sound like David Dim will be here.
My name is Fatima, and I'm the MSYP for FOSIS, which is the Federation of Societies of Islamic Students. And my constituents are very worried about the amount of Islamophobic hate crimes that are occurring, and they're on the increase. And just last year, Police Scotland was the fourth highest region in terms of Islamophobic hate crimes. So I just want to ask the First Minister what she and her government are doing to tackle this abuse and hate crime.
Okay, thank you. Great question.
It's a very important question. Thank you for asking it. I mentioned earlier on that Pollock Shields Primary and Annette Street Primary from my own constituency are here. I'm very fortunate. I represent a constituency, the south side of Glasgow, that has probably the biggest Muslim population anywhere in Scotland, and probably the most diverse constituency anywhere in Scotland. So I see firsthand a lot of the issues that you're talking about. We take a very simple view that we must have zero tolerance to any attacks that are based on somebody's faith or race or culture or anything like that. So hate crime, we must unite as a country and say that there's absolutely no excuse for it and no tolerance of it. Islamophobic attacks and abuse, they're relatively low to put them in context, but they have been increasing. Now, there are big issues at play that factor into that. I think some of the narrative around terrorist attacks, for example, wrongly tend to, whether intentionally or not, single out the Muslim community and make people think that the Muslim community are responsible for some of these things. And we've got to be absolutely clear that that is not acceptable. So, you know, one of the great things about our country, particularly this city, is how diverse it is and how we've got people from all faiths and all backgrounds. And we must absolutely protect that and celebrate that. So the work you're doing as a member of the Youth Parliament on these issues is really, really important. So keep up the good work.
Okay, to answer your question, yeah? Okay, I've got a yellow sheet of paper waving at me. This is definitely a question that's needing to be asked. Hello.
Hi, you said earlier when we were talking about equality that education was the best way to increase tolerance. Would you then agree that in order to increase tolerance of the LGBT community, all high schools should be taught LGBT inclusive sex and relationships education?
Yes, I think as a statement of principle that's the case. I mentioned earlier on the TIE campaign, which you'll be familiar with, which I think has done absolutely outstanding work to bring these issues of homophobic bullying, but also what we need to do to make sure that we have truly inclusive education. Thanks to the encouragement that they gave us, I think I mentioned earlier, we've got a working group just now that's looking at some of these issues, which I think is going to report very soon this autumn, and we are looking forward to taking forward these recommendations. But schools, the education system generally should be a place, because if it's not a place where people feel comfortable and valued, regardless of their background or their sexuality, then we have less chance of making that the case later in life. So it's absolutely vital we get that absolutely right in our schools.
Okay. Let's take some more questions. The girl with the yellow jumper and the pink hair.
Hi, my name's Rachel, and I'm a part of a group called Haggai, which is a forum for young, partially sighted and blind people in Scotland. Going along with the question that was asked earlier about tolerance awareness, is there anything being done to educate young people in primary schools and high schools about visual impairment and blindness? A lot of people seem to think you can either see or you can, and when you're blind you can see absolutely nothing, whereas only 3% of people who are blind can actually see pitch blackness. And the amount of times I'm out walking and a young child will say, "Mummy, what's that white stick?" or "What's that girl doing?" It's quite bad, so yeah.
Thanks for raising that question. I mean, I stand to be corrected here by any teachers or parents who are, or young people in fact, who are listening or who hear this answer, but I suspect the honest answer to your question is that there's maybe not enough been done in our schools to raise awareness of the issues that you've highlighted there, in particular, the differences between somebody who's completely blind and others who have differing degrees of visual impairment. So that's the first time I've heard of your organisation. I would be delighted to come and talk to you and see if there's more that we should be doing and more that we can do in the school system to try to address some of these issues.
Does that help you? Does that answer your question?
Yes,
thank you. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Great, so we're going to take another question from the audience. What about you in the front with your blue top?
Is there anything being done about the plastic in the environment? Because around Glasgow, I've seen a lot of plastic and litter just being thrown, especially on the motorway.
Very, very good question. I'm actually quite surprised it's taken so long for this question to come up, because it's becoming one of the most frequent questions I get asked about by young people, because I think young people care a lot about the environment. So in terms of plastics, and lots of people will have watched the television programme about plastics and the impact on our oceans and beaches. Two broad things that we're trying to do. Firstly is to reduce the amount of plastic that people use in the first place. So we're about to ban these plastic cotton buds. We're about to ban them, for example. So where plastic things are not really necessary, we want to try to reduce them being used at all. So everybody now hopefully is much more thinking about whether it's coffee cups or any single-use plastic items is there an alternative to that? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to try to recycle more and reduce throwing away of these things. So we're also about to introduce what's called a deposit return scheme for plastic bottles, and so that instead of them being thrown away, they're returned and recycled. Other countries do that, and we're about to do that as well. So it's about cutting down the amount of plastic we use, because a lot of the plastic we use, I mean, you'll know what it's like if you see things in, plastic packaging that's not necessary. So let's stop using plastic, but then when we do, make sure that it's been treated properly, not thrown away so that it pollutes our seas.
Good stuff.
Great question.
That's a great question. If I could just follow up with you, First Minister, because you mentioned plastic and things lying around on the streets, lying around in our roads. I'm not sure what it's like in your towns and cities we're all coming from. It's a problem here in Glasgow, and when we raise it with the council, they say it's because their budgets are getting cut.
Well, I represent a constituency in Glasgow, as I've said a couple of times now. I raise with the council regularly some of the issues of litter and street cleaning regularly. In fact, I mentioned Pollock Shields again. I had a meeting in my constituency office just a couple of weeks ago with the cleansing department of Glasgow City Council about issues like that in Pollock Shields. So I find the council in Glasgow is quite responsive, but it's got a big job of work to do. And I'm not trying to let councils off the hook here at all, because it's their responsibility to make sure the streets are clean. But we've all got a responsibility to make sure the streets are clean. And I think it's important that all of us see this as a collective thing, because if something's lying in the street and you get frustrated because the council's not picking it up quickly enough, that's fine. You should do, and the council has to be accountable for that. But somebody's thrown that in the street in the first place. And so we've got a joint collective responsibility to keep our streets clean. And I think that's something that, in my experience, young people have got a big part to play in by trying to educate older people about some of what you all know is important, but perhaps people of my generation, I can't include you, I'm not even sure if I can include you in that, that my generation maybe have habits that are not as good as they should be.
I would follow up again, but we are running out of running a bit low on time. There was a question from over here.
I'm part of the National Deaf Children's Society, and I want to know, if I decided to become a deaf politician in the future, would I be able to have access to all the information required and access to meetings and parliamentary meetings in BSL to support deaf politicians in the future?
Yes is the short answer to that. You absolutely should have. And it would be the responsibility of the Scottish Parliament, if you were a member of the Scottish Parliament, to make sure that all of that was in place so that you could do the job as an MSP just the same as everybody else. In the last session of Parliament, we had a visually impaired member of the Scottish Parliament, Dennis Robertson, who obviously had to have certain arrangements put in place, and I think the Parliament did a good job. The last point I would make here, the Scottish Government set up a fund before the last council elections to help people with any disability who wanted to stand for elected office to be able to access the additional support that they might need, because people, regardless of abilities or disabilities, regardless of any aspect of who they are, should be able to both stand for and be elected on the basis of equality. So whether it's a council, the Scottish Parliament, any elected body has to make sure that that's possible through the practical arrangements they put in place. So I hope to see you in the Scottish Parliament one day.
Okay, Chelsea, do you want to take one?
Thank you.
That's great. So do we have any more questions?
Oh, so many.
Oh, so many hands, so many hands. What about you, young man with your denim shirt?
Hi. I'm Joseph. I'm an asylum seeker, and I have two questions to ask you. And the first one is, why an asylum seeker can he hide or rent the house from the landlord? And the second is, what do you think about asylum seeker and refugees?
Okay. Well, firstly, great to have you here in Scotland with us, Joseph. I believe really strongly that we have a duty as a country to offer asylum to people who are fleeing situations that we can scarcely imagine here. I am not, as First Minister, responsible for the policies around immigration and asylum. These are matters that are the responsibility of the Parliament in London. I would make some changes. I think asylum seekers should be able to work while they're here because many have skills that they want to contribute to our country. I think we should make it easier for people to go through the system, and we should be welcoming, as I think we are generally in Scotland, to people who come to our country, whether it's to seek refuge or whether it's to build a home and contribute to our society. People who come to Scotland for whatever reason are part of Scotland, and we should do everything we can to make them feel part of Scotland and value the contribution that they make. So it's good to have you, not just here in Scotland, but it's good to have you with us today, making your voice heard as part of this session. And I think I detected a bit of a Glasgow accent there. And
Excellent, thanks very much. We're going to take one more question from the floor, and then we're going to go into another quick fire round, and then First Minister will let you escape. But until then, one last question. The lady at the back with the blue tie on.
Why did I have to wait 7 months to get specialist treatment for my chronic skin condition on the NHS?
Well, you shouldn't have had to wait that length of time. I don't know the details of your condition or what exactly you were waiting for, but you shouldn't have had to wait that length of time. Sometimes people do wait longer than they should have to. There'll be a variety of reasons for that. Demand is maybe particularly high. Sometimes there will be staff shortages, maybe if there's a vacancy in a particular service. So we work really hard to keep waiting times as short as possible. The NHS generally just now, and this is not unique to Scotland, it's happening in all parts of the UK and across most of the world, demand on health services is rising, and we're having to change often how services are delivered in order to keep pace with that demand. So you shouldn't have had to wait that length of time, and if you want to have a chat with me at the end, I'm happy if you can give me more details to maybe understand a bit more about the particular circumstances that you faced.
Thank you. So we're going to have our last round of quick fire questions. So over to Catherine, please.
What is your favourite animal in Scotland?
I think my favourite animal is the cat. I like cats. I'm a little bit scared of dogs. That's my one fear is of dogs. So.
Do you have a cat, First Minister?
I don't have a cat. My sister's got about 4, but I'm away from home too much. Cats are very independent, but I think even given that, it would be unfair for me to have a cat just now.
That's a fair point.
It would not get fed.
Good.
What's that, Dan? Oh, now you're testing my knowledge a bit. The question there was, what's my favourite breed of cat? I don't know. What's your favourite breed?
I quite like Siamese cats.
Siamese cats?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I like most of them.
Right.
So our next quick fire question is from Josh.
What is your favourite town?
My favourite town? Oh, this is a difficult one because when I name my favourite town, I'm going to offend every other town in Scotland. Right, I'm going to name 2, okay? The town that was the biggest town close to where I grew up, which is Irvine in Ayrshire. I grew up in Dreghorn, which is just outside Irvine, so that's my favourite town. But can I have a favourite city as well? Well, I'm definitely going to offend every other city in Scotland right now.
Choose wisely.
Well, Glasgow, I represent a part of Glasgow in the Scottish Parliament, and I live in Glasgow, so I suppose I have to go for Glasgow. But all cities and towns in Scotland are wonderful.
They are.
Did I get away with that?
Diplomatic, very diplomatic.
Eleanor.
When did you start gaining interest in politics?
When I was about 16, actually. All the other young people in my class thought I was a bit weird at the time, but yeah, I got interested when I was 16. My modern studies teacher was a big influence on me, and I just was really interested in what was going on in the world, and then I got involved in the SNP in the sort of couple of years after that, so quite young.
And Xander, please.
If you had to go on a reality TV show, which one would you go on?
Right, okay. Can I tell you the ones I wouldn't want to go on first? Okay. Right. I couldn't go on Bake Off because I can't cook or bake. I couldn't go on anything that involved singing because I can't sing. I'm not sure I've got 2 left feet, so I'm not sure Strictly Come Dancing would be right for me. But the one, I don't know if it's still on actually. When I was younger, I used to do ice skating quite a lot. So you're the dancing on ice one. I think I quite fancy that.
Oh, wowzers. That's the dangerous one, though.
Yeah, but I don't know why. I think I fancy that more than Strictly Come Dancing. So, which one would you like to go on?
It's kind of hard to tell because there's a lot.
Do we think there's too many celebrity TV shows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a lot of agreement in the room for that. I saw everyone's heads going.
What was that?
Maybe you should go on Disney on Ice.
Disney on Ice?
Yeah.
Oh, that might be just taking it a little bit too far.
You dress up as Minnie Mouse and skate about.
Right, okay. Minnie Mouse on skates.
Yes. Or you could keep being First Minister of Scotland.
Or I could try my hand at both, you know. Cinderella. I'm not sure I'd make a good Cinderella. I was never kind of princessy or anything like that, but no. So anybody else want to have a shot at dancing on ice with me? There's not too many hands going up there.
It's because everyone knows dancing on ice is the difficult one. I think there's much respect to you, First Minister. Dancing on ice is the one that terrifies me. But if the producers of Dancing on Ice are watching, the First Minister is game. So thank you very much indeed.
Great. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But well done to everyone. You just held your very own First Minister's question time. Give yourselves a pat on the back.
Very well done to you all indeed. And let's all say a big, big thank you to our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, for spending so much time with us today. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's all from this special edition of Scotland Tonight. John's back with you on Monday in the studio. But until then, from me and everyone here in Glasgow, thanks for watching. And a special thank you to the FMQ's Next Generation Design team who helped to bring this special project to life. Good night.